Do you think women today even know what real love looks like anymore? Or has freedom changed it?
I know for a fact they know what it looks like. When you say freedom changed it, that's where I'm kind of stuck on. I think they know what love looks like. They just have to, if you're talking about freedom, the freedom to be able to not adhere to authority or subscribe to male leadership, if that's what you call freedom, I disagree with that being freedom. I would just call that someone who just unhinged. You know what I'm saying? Who don't um, who avoid structure. I wouldn't call it freedom, but if that's what you're calling freedom, then that's a disagreement that I have with that.
Yeah. Freedom is like unlimited options without accountability or sacrifice.
Is that what they call in freedom?
Hmm.
But do you think
Unlimited options without any accountability sounds like a whore or a promiscuous woman, a woman who don't want to take any responsibilities, a woman who's just trifling, who don't even value her self-esteem or anything like that. That's what that sounds like to me.
Hmm.
did he relate it to something sexual though, or did you take it as that?
Did I what?
I said, did he relate it to something sexual, or did you take it as that? Because he mentioned options and you said whore.
Okay, well then what do we mean by options?
Well, maybe we should ask for clarity before we call
You
women.
could ask for clarity, but my answer still stands based on my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But if you need clarity so you can get an understanding, you can ask him what does options means.
I mean, he was the one that spoke on options. So for you to immediately jump to a woman being a whore because she has options, that goes me back. That takes me to my next question: is male structure definitively the correct way to operate?
Absolutely. Male structure is the only way to operate in a society that's supposed to thrive. Anything other than that is deviation and chaos. Yeah, I think male structure is the only thing that keeps a woman from being whores and unruly.
That don't sound too free.
But freedom isn't about like not like I'm lost. I'm 100% lost because you have options or like that makes you a whore. Like
But you're taking away the other party added to that.
mm.
He said having unlimited options without any accountability. Am I correct, JR, or did I mess that up?
Yeah. And I
What
did
do you
want
mean by unlimited options without
Yeah, did I
accountability?
mess it up? Or yes, I'm correct.
Because my question, I guess my question would be, I mean, I don't talk to any, I don't really, I don't respond to any of my DMs, but I got like 300 DMs. People can say that's options. I don't respond to them. That doesn't make me a whore. Like, and then you accountability. What are we being accountable for? Because guys look at me. There are guys in this chat that probably will end up in my DMs tomorrow. Doesn't mean I'm gonna respond to it. Doesn't make like that's what I'm trying to say is like just because people find you attractive, that makes you the whore. No, when you go out and do something and continuously, then that's different. Then we could talk about that. But like having an option does not make you a whore.
Who would
I
say
mean,
your
freedom just
DMs?
equals you got a choice.
Who would say your DMs is an option? And what do you mean by option, Kelly?
What I mean by options is that like if someone like, for example, right, if multiple people like you, that's an option. They like you. You can choose to talk to them. You can choose to entertain it, or you can choose not to.
We're talking
Those
about
are
your
all.
DMs. We're talking about your DMs, right?
I'm talking about just
Well,
people
you
in general.
mentioned you mentioned
Mentioned DMs,
DMs.
yes, because there's options in there, just like there's probably options in yours,
Well,
options in Kai's,
let
options in
me
Lapeef's.
enlighten you. Those options are more than likely somebody that won't fuck you, not necessarily like you. Let's be
Okay.
real.
Okay,
So
but
if
that
that's
just
what you
because it's
call,
there doesn't
so if
mean
that's
that
what you
you're
call an
choosing to entertain it.
if that's what you call an option, and then to JR's point, if we're using those options in a way where we're not having any accountability, then what happens?
What do you mean?
At
Wait, what
what
did you?
point do you have to take accountability for options? That's like
Well,
going in a clothing store and saying, "Oh, I have all these different clothes to choose from.
If
I take
indulge in all of
accountability."
these
That doesn't
options
make
that you
sense.
think you have,
Uh-huh.
if you said what you said, 300 DMs.
Yeah, like 290 something.
Okay, so if you exercise all of these options and you're moving in a way where you don't have any accountability, and what do you think that is?
But we're changing the
But I'm not
goalposts. You
saying
didn't
that.
say
No, but
exercise the options.
my argument is just because you have options doesn't mean you need to exercise on them. Having options doesn't mean you have to take accountability. That is my argument. You shouldn't have to take accountability for something you aren't doing. The precedence of having an option doesn't mean you need to be accountable for having an option. You only
Okay,
become accountable when you
what are you
do
gonna do with these
something and
options?
exercise.
So if you don't utilize these options, then it
It doesn't
don't
just
apply
you
to
don't need
you.
to take it exactly, but that was my point because the statement that was made was when you have options and no accountability, not when you have options, act on that options and decide not to take accountability for whatever life you decide to live through that. Having options doesn't necessarily mean you need to take accountability. Accountability
In
comes
what
when you start
world?
doing and acting in a way that
In what
requires
world
that.
do you bring up options? Why is you making a case for having options if you don't even utilize any of them?
Because
What's
there's
the whole
still
point of
options that
even
because
talking
the
about it
word it
if it's not even a thing that you're going to indulge in or you want to even exercise? What's the
because
whole
the
point of
word
even having it mentioned in the topic?
because the word itself, options, doesn't necessarily mean what your statement was. The options doesn't necessarily mean you're over here exercising them. Just because you
Well,
have options doesn't
any
necessarily
woman
mean
I've
that.
ever known in my line of work and in my experience, any woman I've ever known that talked about options or talked about how many DMs she's got, she's typically out here using them motherfuckers. Let's just keep it real.
Majority of women do not even go through them, to be honest with you. That's the real. I'm probably on the internet way more than anybody. I stream 24/7 all day long.
And what
You
world
will
you live
never
in?
catch me outside. You will never catch me outside. I'm always
You
inside on the internet.
what you're doing is applying your anecdotal experience to all of the women. We're talking about women who don't have any accountability.
Majority of the women that, and I'm like I said, like I'm coming from the internet, I'm coming from the streaming world. Majority of them don't even respond to DMs. They don't.
all right, let me
But
go
you're
ahead.
talking about
Okay, let me go ahead and
a
add this.
woman who don't have any accountability, who's moving into behavior, has adopted a behavior that don't have any accountability, and that also has you pairing that type of behavior up with a woman who have hundreds of options.
Majority of women
You
have
haven't been on
hundreds
the
of
internet
options,
long enough.
period. Majority of women, but before even the internet was invented, women ourselves always have options. When they step outside the house, there's always someone saying, "You're beautiful," or "I want to talk to you," or this and that. Let's be honest. Having options is not the same.
Again,
It's different when you actually do something.
when you talk about these so-called options you got, what do you refer? 'Cause I know what y'all think they are.
Mhm.
Y'all think that in whatever fantasy thinking y'all have, that's a guy that's husband material or that's a compatible mate or
No,
somebody
we
who
don't.
desires you for marriage. Typically, those options y'all think y'all have is just a guy that would just want to turn you into a bust down.
Telling women what they think is outrageous.
No,
But
we don't.
Okay.
Majority of
personally,
women do not
I think
think.
an option,
Then
I
what do
think
you
an
think those
option
options are? What do you think
is
those DMs
any
are?
man that is interested in you. That could be considered an option. Whether he said, "Hey, can I get your number on the side of the street?" He had called you, he whatever. That could be considered an option. But I do not have to take accountability for that option if I'm not engaging with it. So to say that women with options lack accountability, thus making them whores, is outrageous. It doesn't make sense.
Accountability doesn't take
You
fact
can't
until
get mad
someone
at me,
does it.
sweetheart. This is the topic this is the
No,
question JR posed to
I'm
me.
not upset with
He
you.
said it was women with options that don't have any accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make it up. So you can't come after me, sis.
No,
We're
it's
not
not
coming
about
after
you
you.
making up the topic. I asked you about clarifying for what options means, and you said you didn't need clarification, and you proceeded to lead with
I
your
didn't
own
know. I didn't need it
right, your
because I
own
understand
perspective.
it.
And based on your
You need it because
perspective,
you
I
don't
believe that
understand
it's
it. So
outrageous.
what you need to do is you need to ask JR, what does he mean by options?
I mean, you clarified what you thought it meant. I don't need to ask them any further.
Well, I'll go ahead and put this out there. It's about personal freedom in relationships where women today feel they should not have to sacrifice anything for love. They should not have to depend on a man for anything. They should not be able to keep all their options open emotionally, financially, romantically, even while asking a man for love, protection, and loyalty. They believe needing a man makes them look weak, so they prioritize independence, even inside relationships.